actually took the couple of records that I had released in the United States at the time, took them out of his record store and personally took them up to Mr. Jim Denny and Jack Stapp, who was the program director at the time. And they listened and they said, well, Ernest, we'd like to help you, but Hank sounds too much like you. And I sound about as much like Ernest as I do like Dolly Parton. And there's a vast difference there.
You think this was just an excuse?
I think it was kind of a brush-off at the time because, you see, Ralph, I did not have a hit record when I came to the Grand Ole Opry, and really, that was a must, which goes further to say the great job, the selling job that Ernest did to bring an artist comparatively unknown to the Grand Ole Opry without a hit record.
How did Ernest know you?
Well, Ernest and I, of course, were like many others. Ernest and I were great admirers of the late Jimmie Rodgers. He was our inspiration, the same as he inspired many people, many of the artists today, which they'll tell you. So we had been corresponding for about 2 years back and forth. And then I came, I went the long way around. I went from Nova Scotia, from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I went I toured across Canada for a couple of years, and before I came to the United States, well, about 10 years, as a matter of fact. And then I wound up in Hollywood, California. From Hollywood, I went to Dallas, and into Dallas, I met Ernest. And I remember the night, the first night that I met him in person. And some folks, friends of mine, disc jockey friends in Dallas said, would you like to be on the show? We can get you $25. And I thought, well, that's great, because $25 back then looks like $25,000 right now. Because my wife and I were having it pretty rough, and Jimmy was just 12 years old, our son. And so that night he let me hold the Jimmie Rodgers original guitar, the guitar that Jimmy made all of his records with. And it gives you a very funny feeling to hold Jimmy's guitar. And I said, Ernest, take it quick, because I may drop it, because I was shaking really. But he said, Hank, you should be on the Grand Ole Opry. So that's where it's all happening. And he said, I'm on my way to the West Coast now. I've got a 6 months leave of absence from the Opry, and I'll see Jack Stapp and Jim Denny to see if you could replace me while I'm gone for the 6 months. Well, that didn't work. So then I waited around, and finally Ernest called me on the telephone. He said, in Dallas, and he said, can you leave right away? He said, I believe I've got you placed on the Grand Ole Opry. Well, could I leave right away? I couldn't get away from the telephone fast enough. And so I drove to Nashville from Dallas, met Ernest at his record store, which was on Commerce Street at the time. And he said, wait a little bit now, I'll get away with me, and I'll take you up to meet Mr. Denny, and we'll have a talk with Mr. Denny. So we went up and we sat and we talked to Mr. Denny, who was an extremely fine person to talk to. And he said, yeah, he said, I think we can give you a try. He said, we pay you $75 a week, which nearly blew my mind.
What year was this?
This was in it was late 1949. It was in the fall of 1949. He said, so we'll have to have some 8 or 10 pictures of you, need 3 poses, and we'll start a publicity campaign on you, and we'll get you started. So he said, could you be free and back here again to start on January the 7th? I said, I can be back here again tomorrow for that matter.
So Ernest did make the sale.
So Ernest made the sale, but the funny part of it was, I thanked Ernest and told everybody how much I appreciated the fact, and went on back to my motel and was going to get ready to drive back to Dallas, and Ernest called. He said, Hank, by all means, get back up here as quick as you can. He said, we never went to see Jack Stapp, and he's the program director. So I drove on back, and we went in and seen Jack, and said, yeah, we never let on that we'd seen Mr. Denny first. And so we just came to Mr. Denny's office, and he was wondering how you thought about putting Hank on the show. So, well, whatever Jim says, okay with me. So
So you were on.
You got on the ground.